Okay, so now moving on, we've started to think about our resources. We've come up with a bit of a plan. We know what we want to monitor. We know what our priorities are. We've thought about how that might play out, and we started to think about the resource needs for what's going to make that happen. And to some degree, we start to balance up all the considerations around our resources. All right, so what we're really now trying to do is now making sure that we've got a really clear description. And understanding. Okay, so now we need to develop this up into a bit of a shopping list or a bit of a schedule because there's a few things that we need to really start to consider and make sure that we give clear instruction on. And the first one is if we're going to request, particularly if we're requesting staff or requesting money or getting additional things into our business or new technology platforms, we need to make sure that this is fairly well detailed so people understand what it is we want to do. The reason being is because we might not be the people going shopping for it. Okay, so if we're going to ask someone else to go and get these resources on our behalf, to go down the shop to pick them up, whatever it is, we need to make sure we get some really, really clear detail to take away ambiguity and prevent mistakes being made, which might end up costing us a lot of money later on. And the first thing we need to do is we need to talk to people about the aim of the resource. Okay, so we need to make sure that everyone involved in the process really understands why that resource is being sought. So what do we intend to do with it? Where do we, why are we getting 50 people to hand out brochures? Why are we getting a new computer platform? Why are we, the why? Okay, so that's the first thing we need to do is make sure there's a really clear aim. Then we need to talk about the nature. The nature of the resources. So what is it exactly that you're going to get? So we're going to get some people to hand out brochures to make sure that everyone understands what's going on. The sort of people that we need are people that are able to stand on a street corner and hand a brochure. Or the aim of the resources is we need to conduct market research into whatever activity it is, which is going to be a phone-based thing. So the nature of the people we need is we need people who have skills at being able to ring people up and whatever it happens to be, or we need additional funding in order to fund this activity. The nature of the activity is going to be, it's going to be a brochure handout. Okay, so once again, we've got an aim, okay, which tells us what we're trying to achieve or what we're notionally trying to do. And then there's the nature, which is the details about the how or the, a little bit more of the how or the why, etc. All right, great. So moving on from them, we need to think about the volume. Okay, this is when we talk about, well, how much? Okay, how many do we need? Okay, so how many people exactly do we need? Do we need them 50 people all at once? Or is it 10 people this week, 10 people a week after that, 10 people a week after that, etc.? So is it 50 over time or 50 all at once? How many exactly? What is the, what is the measurement? Okay, so time and space. We also need to start getting into, if we're looking at a resource, persons using the resource. So who's the resource intended for? Okay, so who's going to be using it? Particularly, once again, if we're buying a new technology platform or buying a new device or an item, well, who's going to be using that? Or even if we're getting people, who's going to be managing them? Who's going to be leading them? Who's going to be giving the task assignment? Okay, so it needs to be really clear there as well so that people know if there's a chain of command or they know they need to follow certain instructions. Okay, how are we prioritizing? Who are we prioritizing into that space? I need to think about any training requirements. Okay, so my training requirements. If I'm actually going to get people, do I need to train those people? Are they going to turn up fully trained? Do I need to, well, who's training them? Okay, so if they actually require training, well, where's the resources to train those people coming from? Is it that I already have a staff member who's very skilled that I can put in charge of that? But if I put a person who's very skilled from my staff in charge of training the new guys, who's doing their job? Because I needed to take them from something. So what did I deprioritize, which is what we did earlier? What did I take them away from? Was that a key thing that we had to do in the business? And is reassigning them over there, taking them away from that, is that the wisest use of that person? Or do I need to get, once again, it's a balancing act that I need to really think about. More to the point, if I get new equipment in that I need to train people on new equipment, it's all my staff, we've got new technology platform, a new customer management system, whatever it happens to be, the people that work for me have to stop their day-to-day activities in order to go and spend some time to learn it. And even once they do learn it, then there's that uptake of time that it's going to take them time to get good at it. While they're still struggling with that, are we still business as usual, or what's going to happen? So I start to really think about that as well. Particularly if we're going to go off and do a marketing activity, those people need to be up to speed before we even begin. Or can they start catching up and we've started the activity and they'll just catch up, How do we want to put that, right? So we've got some time constraints we need to start to really think about. I need to think about workplace health and safety requirements once again. Okay, so if I'm going to do a marketing activity, I also need to think about the workplace health and safety requirements. If they're going to be those people, once again, I'm going to get some people together. We're going to do a handout. That's going to be part of what we do as the main activity. People are going to be giving out brochures on the street. What if I'm looking at one person late at night handing out brochures on a strange street with no one else around? Is that putting their safety at risk? What if I put them near a dangerous road? Or, I need to start thinking about where they're going to be, when they're going to be. Are they going to have people around? So really starting to think about their safety comes into that. I need to also think about location of use. Okay, so location of use becomes a thing here as well when I'm going to get the resources. It's very good. I might get all these people handing out stuff on the street. We're no longer going to hand stuff out in the street. I want these people to be doing market research on the street. And what's going to happen is, to make sure that we've got some good technology, I'm going to get them all iPads. And during their time on the street, they'll be asking people stuff on an iPad. But is really, it could be in a laptop. If it was a laptop, well, that's not really going to work on a street. Okay, they need to be highly mobile, it needs to be light, so iPad might be it, but then might they drop an iPad? Do I need to get a cover for the iPad? What if it rains? What happens to the iPad then? Okay, so I need to start really thinking about not just buying the technology, but thinking about, well, what place are they going to use it in? If they're using it in the street, well, how long does the battery last? Where can they recharge that iPad? Okay, so what looked like a great idea in the office, you might find that when you get out there into the real world, it's not such a great idea. So think carefully about where they're going to be using that, and also, once again, the time frame. Okay, so time frame for use. So if you're looking at, are they going to be using these items over a long period of time? Once again, this is stuff we looked at a minute ago. Are they going to look at it a long time? Is it going to be months, weeks, years? But also, in the terms of the iPad, well, how long are they going to have the time frame for use? Are they going to be using it an hour a day, 2 hours a day, 10 hours a day? Because if it's 10 hours a day, well, how am I going to get them recharged? If it's only 2 hours a day, well, maybe that works. But these things all start to come together, and if we actually analyze each resource just through this for a minute, we start to see problems with our plan or considerations that we're going to have to deal with. As I said, for the iPads, we want to use the iPad to collect information from people on the street. The nature is it's going to be some market research software put there. It's going to be used by the market researchers as they come through. The volume of resources, look, I've got 50 market research people. Do I need to get every one of them an iPad? Or if they're going in shifts, can I share the iPads around? Okay, how soon do they need them? Where do they need them, etc. Those people, do they understand how to use an iPad? Is there a training requirement how to use the iPad? Not just the software, but the actual iPad itself. Workplace health and safety requirements. I've now got people standing on a street late at night with a very expensive iPad by themselves in a dangerous neighbourhood. Is that such a good idea? Location of use, once again, that does tie into workplace health and safety, but they're outdoors on a street. So then there's things about, well, how do they plug it in? What if it rains? What if? And then time frame for use. When do they need to start using them? When does the training need to happen? How soon do I need them on the street? How long each day are they going to be used? And is this going to happen for 6 months, 6 years, or how long is that going to go? All right, so each resource I've thought about, I really need to make sure that I've got a great picture of that. It's going to help me identify any problems so that when I actually start to undertake my activity, I don't get caught by surprise later with things that I never really thought about. Okay, it's a really embarrassing, bad thing to have happen. Don't do it. All right, great. So that's really the next stage of my thinking. Okay, so we've talked a fair bit about getting resources, whether it be people, equipment, technology, etc. Because obviously we want to undertake a marketing activity and we might need suppliers or things to help make that happen. As I said a minute ago, it could have been something like, iPads, it could be different technology needs, laptops, whatever it happens to be, okay? So once again, you've thought about whether it's you or somebody else going and getting these things, those people need to make sure they've got very clear instructions really about understanding the resource and all those sort of things. And part of the reason we really make sure people understand what and why they're doing is so that if they end up with a problem, or they have to balance things out, they can't get the right number or whatever it happens to be, they can start to make some decisions very quickly. And if they know why they're making the decision, if all of a sudden they have to overcome a problem and come up with a solution, they can come up with the right solution at the time because they understand what they're trying to achieve and how they need to achieve it. And what they can do is, rather than just go, oh, I didn't get the thing I need and walk away, they get into a position of being able to come up with a solution for you, and before they implement the solution, call you up. What if I can't get the 50 iPads I need? Can I get 10 now and then 10 later? Would that work? Or if we actually needed the 50 right now and I can't get the iPads, could I maybe get some sort of other tablet PC that might fill in just as good for what I need at the time? Okay, and then they can come back to you and tell you what is available rather than what's not, and hopefully help you with that decision-making system to make it a little bit better, and also avoid the making mistakes. But okay, so thinking really closely, as we get down to the details, if we're going to purchase a resource or you're going to send someone out, make sure you've given them a really clear understanding of what it is you want them to do, and that you've got things very well detailed for them. And some of the things that we start to look at is make sure that you're getting what you think you're getting. Okay, so when you send them out to buy the iPad, make sure you're getting back the ones that you want. They don't just go out and go, look, I've got 50 of them, and then find out they were the wrong ones. So make sure that when you're ordering or you're looking at things, and particularly in a hurry, because sometimes a sale comes along and you go, oh, that looks great, and you buy it, and then you realize it's the wrong one. So make sure that one of the things you detail very clearly is an item number. Okay, or another way of looking at that is what model number is it? Okay, if there's a specific, there can be very similar looking items, but they'll have a slightly different model number because they'll have one or two features that aren't the same. And all of a sudden you go out and you think you've bought the right one and you realize you bought the one with a different set of features than the one you planned on. So, and it can be very, very, the items can look almost identical and then just find out they don't have this or they don't have that. It might not have the right number of plugs. It might not necessarily have the right compatibility. It could be, something small, a little cable, but it doesn't actually connect up the way you want it to. So all of a sudden, you've got a whole bunch of things that don't work. So making sure that you've got very, very clear item numbers, very important there. The next thing is to make sure it's the year model. Okay, because you could have been looking at an item number for this year, and last year's model might have used the exact same item number, but been actually, there could have been a revision in the meantime. So make sure you know what year and what the item number actually is very clearly. Okay, very small details might have shifted. They might have kept the same item number because it's only a small revision, but the plug changed or some other detail changed somewhere. And all of a sudden you get 50 of something that you can't use, that's not compatible with everything else, wasting time, wasting money, creating a hassle. The other one is check your color. Okay, if you need things in a specific color, make sure that color's available and you've chosen it. It has to fit in. If all of a sudden you find that you're getting, 50 bright pink ones, maybe that doesn't work out so well with everything else you're trying to achieve. So make sure you're very specific about the color, make sure your color choice is available, or if it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, okay? But if it does, make sure you've specified. Okay, and make sure you also check the size of the product that you want. Okay, is it the appropriate size? Is it going to fit in with what you want to do? Does size actually, in relation to everything else, is that a consideration or not? Okay, to make sure once again you have sufficient numbers, sufficient material, sufficient size. You might need to, if it's a large order, you might be ordering a sufficient number to, break down into other, smaller orders, whatever it happens to be, okay? But sizing becomes a real concern there. As I say, because what will happen is all of a sudden some fantastic offer will come along and you go, oh, it was the exact item number I want, order 50 of them, and then find out it was last year's model. Or you order 50 of them and then find they're the wrong color. Or you order 50 of them and you find they're the wrong size, which is sort of pointless. Ordering 50 size ultra, ultra, ultra small t-shirts really isn't going to help for your people standing on the street handing stuff out. So make sure it's the appropriate size, you've got a good decent mix in there. Okay, another thing you need to look at is your cost of delivery. Okay, this is the old eBay special. Something looks like it's 5 cents, it's fantastic, and then you see $400 delivery charge or something like that. So really, when we're looking at the actual price, we need to consider the delivery cost specifically, especially in a circumstance where you might be getting multiple deliveries or it's going to happen, one by one by one by one. All of a sudden the price adds way up and something that appeared cheap once you add delivery cost actually blows right out. it could be better off to spend a little bit more on the actual price if the delivery is included or whatever it happens to be. Okay, because that's a factor that will sneak up over time. Got to make sure that you check that very carefully. A typical thing businesses do that drives me absolutely around the bend, I hate it when they do this, is you go through the whole process of going through their website and then they throw the delivery on at the end. So you found the right year model, you found the right size, you find the right color, and you get to the very end and they want some ridiculous delivery fee, and then you cancel your order. So it's a massive time waste and very frustrating when it happens. Okay. The other thing is we need to check for any hidden costs. Okay, are there any hidden costs there that I need to look closely at? Is the initial purchase really cheap, but then the ongoing supplies are really expensive? You see that a lot with technology, things like computer printers, where it almost ends up cheaper to throw away a printer than buy a new printer toner. Because what they really do is they stack it to get you to buy it cheap in the first place so they can actually make their money selling you toner as they go along. So you've got to think about that as well. So what are the hidden costs? What are the extras? Are there insurance costs I need to factor in? Is there wastage? Is there, does it break? What happens? Is there extra insurance I need to put in there? Is there an ongoing monthly fee that I haven't really thought about? Okay, the next one is my time frames for delivery. Okay, so when will they deliver? Where will they deliver it to? And how's that going to work? Thinking about that, we also need to think about, well, where are they going to deliver to? Okay, so if you've got building materials or building supplies, when can they get that to you? Where are they going to leave it? How's it going to operate? If you're doing your marketing activity and you're getting a whole massive amount of brochures printed up, are they going to deliver those brochures to your office? Or are they going to deliver them to, like, the front of the street address, just drop them off there, and then you're going to have to distribute it through your place? I know that in a marketing activity we did recently, it was a fundraiser, and it involved getting 3,500 packs of biscuits. 3,500. It was this massive pallet of biscuits. It was gigantic. The truck pulled up at the front of the building, dropped off this gigantic pallet of 3,500 packs of biscuits, but they wouldn't actually take it inside the building. So all of a sudden you're stuck with, dozens of these big boxes, 20 biscuits per box, and you're taking them 20 at a time inside the building, unloading this pallet. Took ages and was a big muck around. But also that delivery was a week late, and we had to get someone to go and open it at a certain time, and it was very frustrating. So the time frame for delivery, when they gave it to us, they said it's between 7 and 14 days. Well, when is that? If I need them in 10 days, is it going to happen, or are they going to arrive 4 days too late? Okay, so thinking about where you're going to get delivered to, how you're going to get delivered to, and the time frames involved in all that. Is someone going to unpack it? Obviously, then the delivery wasn't complete at that stage, because then we need to take 3,500 packets and then distribute that to the individual agents. So by the time that people actually got them in their hot little hands, it was actually about 3 weeks later. 7 to 14 days turned into 21 very quickly, and we need to think about how that's going to tie in with the rest of our activity and whether that's going to work. The mode of delivery, obviously, which is what that was just getting back to. Okay, so how will they deliver it? Requirements for loading and unloading. So where are they going to place it to? If it's, if it's a whole pile of brochures, is that heavy? Are you going to need things to pick that up? Can anyone pick that up? Is it a large object? Do I need to move it to another place? Okay, if it's a large, massive box, I need to think about that as well. How does it arrive? Or how do these things arrive? How do they turn up? What if my resource is people? Or what's the mode of delivery? When do they come to work? Where do they go? If I'm keeping them late at night or I'm moving into a different place, do I need to give them accommodation, meals? All those sort of things come in. And then lastly, I need to also think about, is there an insurance need? Okay, if I've got a nice new shiny piece of equipment or 50 iPads, do I have some sort of insurance? If they get lost or damaged, do I get money back, or if something happens to them, am I just going to lose it? Okay, so these are all, this is quite a lot of stuff to think about for my resources, okay? And the more specific and the more detailed and the clearer I can be about how that's going to work, the more likely I'm going to end up satisfied and the less likely I'm going to end up with a problem. Okay, so jump on board all those things, think about them carefully, make sure you got them detailed, especially these areas up here. It's so easy to get this wrong, because if this is wrong and your time frames blow out, you might not be able to return it in time for your activity. And that's just going to have heaps of knock-on effects. All right, so think about that really carefully, and then we're going to start moving into how we deliver this on the ground. Okay, great.